I couldn't help but laugh when Bob Brown was talking before. The idea that Bob Brown or any other politician anywhere is interested in free markets is just a farce. Like, it's not possible to have free markets at the moment because our currency is rigged. Our currency is printed out of thin air with interest charged on it. So while we sit there and chat about the rate of interest that banks charge on it, it's kind of irrelevant. It's like discussing the finer points of how we rig the market. But essentially, the market's rigged. They print money out of thin air. They lend it at interest. And this misnomer that you perpetuate yourself, John, when you suggest that banks borrow money from central banks and then lend it at a greater interest rate to make their money, is just false. It's just patently absurd, and it's a lie, and it's the myth that's perpetuated by the media, whereas the reality is when they lend money, they lend it into existence. If you or I did it, it's counterfeit, tossed in jail. Bank does it. Oh, well, they have a special banking license, and that's how it works.
Chase, do you want a barter economy without currency?
No, I definitely want currency. I just don't want centrally issued currency, and I definitely don't want fractional reserve.
Centrally issued currency? Who else issues currency?
Anyone could issue currency. Currency could be issued in many forms.
You want to go gold or shells, seashells or diamonds?
It could be anything. It could be scripts or anything. It could be promises for anything. That's what we do now, effectively. It's like we go to the bank and we say, I want a credit card, and they say, okay, John's good for credit, so they give John credit. But John could do that without the bank, and the banks invent the money when they make it up.
Yeah, okay. So we invent everything. We invent corporations too, don't we, Chris?
No, but it doesn't matter. But the corporation doesn't have instant, imitable market value. I can't take a corporation. I can't take a corporation and sell it if it's not producing or making or anything. When NAB lends money,
the concept of limited liability, which creates a corporation, the concept of collective endeavour and sharing, we make it all up, don't we? If you want to go,
it doesn't matter. But I agree. No, I'm not being silly at all about it. They commit counterfeit. They invent money that they don't have. They lend it at a real interest rate, and then we have to pay it back. They've done no work, no effort. Why does
Chris? It's the real world. What do you do?
It's not the real world. Why does every farmer, engineer, everyone that does all the real work on the planet, why do they owe it all to bankers who do nothing? They make it up out of thin air.
Chris?
I do several things. I have a small business. I trade and share in commodities and a few other bits and pieces.
Okay, you trade in fiction.
No. I take real delivery of metal because I don't trust that all the contracts that are out there that say that they're good for metal are good for metal.
You attribute a monetary value to them, and you use the currency even though you don't believe in it.
I have no choice. This is the point. If there was free currencies, then I would have a choice not to use it. But if I don't use the Australian dollar and if I don't trade in it, then eventually men with guns come to my door to take my stuff because the tax office says, oh, he's not paying taxes, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. So people come and harass you. So yeah, I definitely use it. I have no choice but to use it. But if we had really free markets, there would be choice about what we use as our currency. And the point is that we don't. The point is that banks commit counterfeit. There's no way of avoiding that issue. Banks commit counterfeit. Our banking system's a Ponzi scheme. That's why it's teetering the world over. Every time they have a bailout, it's a massive transfer of wealth from the taxpayer to private bankers. This is private people we're bailing out. Yes, John?
Did NASA ever actually make it to the moon?
What are you trying to discount the critical fact that I'm drawing attention to here about banking fraud by associating with a conspiracy theory about the moon? It's got nothing to do with the moon. It's got to do with the fact that NAB, Westpac, Commonwealth Bank, every time they lend money, they make it up. They didn't have it. That's called counterfeit if anyone else does it. But they have this magically ordained license that the government gives them. And we all pretend that, we have free markets. There's no free markets. These guys decide what gets money lent to on an international scale. They decide who they lend money to build weapons, who they lend money to build, plants and oil pipelines and all this stuff. The basic fundamental human will throughout the globe is being distorted by a pack of bankers who decide where the capital gets allocated. Instead of us, instead of our will directing where capital gets allocated, banksters do. And we see the result. It's war, it's scarcity, it's false scarcity. We don't need the kind of scarcity that we have. It's due to the fact that so much of our productive output is siphoned off by this insidious and criminal banking system.
Thank you, Chris.
And you defend it by not asking those bankers when they get... Well, John, when they come online, why don't you ask them...
I'm getting bored now.
Well, you shouldn't be. It goes to the very nature of your children's capacity to, exist in a real economy in the future.
Okay.
Why don't you ask when you have these bankers on, why don't you ask them, hey, what God ordained you guys the capacity to invent and print the money out of thin air?
All right. I've got a
Right.
whole board of people wanting to have a go, and you've had more than your share. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Bye-bye.
Jill in Malvern. Hello, Jill.